with a very important lesson, the lesson on playing single notes. Yeah, so in this lesson we're going to learn the two methods of getting single notes on the harmonica. We're going to learn about the pros and cons of each and situations where each method might be appropriate. Alright, so just a reminder of last lesson about the harmonica pyramid. What we're basically trying to do is we're trying to go up from shabby to folky. Now, a lot of people have difficulties getting single notes. They never even manage it in some cases, and it is quite difficult to do at first. So let's just try and understand what the problem is. So this is just a picture of the comb of a harmonica as it presents itself to you when you want to play it. Now, the average human mouth, when presented to such a comb, will look like that. Okay, so you present a relaxed mouth to the comb. You normally cover 3 holes. Now, just for your information, the width of a hole on the diatonic harmonica is quite narrow. Yeah, it's 4.5 millimeters, roughly speaking. If you're interested, that isn't the narrowest one going. If you want to really give yourself a challenge, you could try playing a puck harmonica. So in my left hand here, I've got a puck harmonica. That's got 10 holes still. Okay, it's about the smallest harmonica, smallest 10-hole harmonica that Hohner do. Just about possible to get a tune out of, though. Anyway, going back to what is already quite a narrow hole in the face of the common or garden diatonic harmonica, it's quite difficult to get just one single note. Now, the narrowness of those holes isn't the Hohner company just being awkward, right? They are deliberately that narrow, precisely so that you can quite easily cover 3 holes, because remember what I've said already, the harmonica is a chord instrument. So the basic problem is that what we need to do is we need to somehow reduce the aperture we are presenting to the harmonica down to about 1 centimetre. So there's 2 methods of getting single notes on a harmonica, puckering and tongue blocking. We'll take them in that order. So puckering, also known as pursing and also known as lip blocking, is what you might call the brute force method, where we just force our mouth to be as narrow as possible so that we can just get one note, as you can see here. Now, the key point I'd make in terms of technique here is that in spite of its name, this technique, puckering, you don't pucker up in the same way that you would if you were giving somebody a peck on the cheek, a kiss. Yeah, you don't do that, because when you do that, if you think about it, you are pursing your lips into the smallest possible space on the sides and top to bottom as well. As I've tried to show in this picture, you keep your top lip and your bottom lip quite relaxed. Okay, in fact, it's very important that what's in contact with the harmonica is the wet inside of your lips. This is what it looks like. Yeah, can you see my lip was going quite far over the cover plate there. As I said, the key point being that we want to touch the harmonica with the wet inside of our lips, all right? For 2 main reasons. One is to get a good seal, because the saliva on the inside acts as a bit of a glue, you could say, to stop the wind going out the side. That's what we always want to do on the harmonica. We want to maximise our breath going over the reed, so make the most efficient use of our breath. So the other reason is that we're going to be moving around the harmonica, and if you've got a nice wet inside of your lip, it's going to lubricate that movement much more than if you present it with some dry lips. That's basically it for puckering. So the second technique is called tongue blocking. You'll see why shortly. Key point about tongue blocking is that we still present to the harmonica a nice relaxed mouth, yeah? So covering 3 or so reeds. But then what we're going to do is we're going to cover up the holes we don't want to sound with our tongue, hence tongue blocking. I liken it to that famous story about Michelangelo, where somebody said, "Michelangelo, how did you make a statue as beautiful as the statue of David?" And he reputedly turned around and said, "Well, it was easy, really. All I did was I kept chipping away the bits that didn't look like David." It's the same sort of thing here. We're chipping away, we're getting rid of the notes that we don't want to sound. So this is kind of what it works like. If you imagine our view is from the mouth, right? We've got the lips making contact with the harmonica, giving all 3 holes, and we're going to block out the holes to the left of the one that we want to sound. So that's how it normally works. On the right hand side of your mouth, you've got a little gap that you're letting the air through. Okay, so just to give you a feel for it, this is That's blow 2, blow 3, blow 4, all at the same time. And I'm now going to gradually introduce my tongue from the left-hand side, just very, very gently, just touching it onto the harmonica. Single note, yeah? Now, I'm sure some of you will ask the question, could you have done that from the left-hand side of your mouth? And the answer is yes, you could. Especially for beginners and intermediate people, I'd say maybe start off with trying to get it right on the right-hand side first. So tongue to the left, hold to the right is what we're saying. So those are the two techniques. Which one do you think's the best one? Well, let's have a think about that, shall we, folks? There are pros and cons to each. So starting off with puckering then, as you can see on the flip chart, I've done a summary of what I think are some of the main pros and cons. So the first one is it says can bend notes, right? Now, if this was a Marvel comic superhero film, this would admittedly be a bit like flying and X-ray vision and the ability to turn invisible all rolled into one, right? This is a real superpower. The bending technique enables 8 more draw notes to come in the lower octaves, 4 more blow notes to come in the top octave, yeah, so 12 of our 18 missing notes are yielded using bending, and bending is a precursor to playing blues with any authenticity, okay? So some people are completely blinded by this as the pro to end all pros for both of those, which is why a lot of people don't get round to even working out how to do tongue blocking. Second one, similar kind of idea, you have to pucker in order to do overblows and overdraws. The third one is about the use of your tongue, right? Now think about it, if you're tongue blocking, yeah, your tongue is already spoken for, isn't it? It's blocking out notes, okay? Whereas with puckering, we've got a tongue that can get up to all sorts of mischief behind your puckered aperture, haven't we? So you can use it for articulation. So articulation meaning how we start and stop notes. You can go tucka, 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 tucka. So you can go like this, for example. Etc. Yeah, so I was doing tucka, 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 tucka. Another thing that you can do with that tongue is that you can use it to achieve some effects. Yeah, so if you're going oi, 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 which is what you do with the tongue. That's draw 4. Yeah, you can get a form of vibrato, especially on the draw notes. There are some cons. So the first one I've called less accurate blows specifically. What I mean by that is that when you do pucker up, you will find that when you blow out of your mouth, the aperture does widen a little bit. And correspondingly, when you draw, it reduces in size. Yeah, so sometimes, especially when you're playing quickly, you can get 2 blow notes when you wanted to only get 1 by accident because you're moving around very quick. Now, the second con down is the evil twin of the first pro. Okay, now I've often noticed when I've been teaching people and they, magical moment, they get their first draw bend. Hooray, let's open the champagne. And the problem is they become so keen on this new effect that they forget how to draw a note without bending. All right, and then you have to remind them, actually, sometimes we want to get draw 4 without a bend. And that can actually be quite an issue for people once they get so into the whole bending thing. And even for more experienced players, you can find that sometimes you can accidentally draw bend and blow bend at the top octave. And for that reason, puckering is regarded as the technique which is less reliable in terms of actual tuning. Yeah, you're more likely to get slightly flat notes. Likewise, if you're playing with vim and gusto, you can get accidental overblows. All right, I'm I'm quite prone to that sometimes. Yeah, so I'm trying to get just a plain C, a blow 4. There we go. There was an accidental overblow came in. It means that you have to kind of quell your ardour a little bit as you're playing if you're using puckering to make sure you don't get them by accident. Now, the last con is the fact that if you think about it, what you're doing here, folks, is you're straining musculature in your cheeks to achieve your pucker, which will put quite a strain on your mouth, if I'm honest with you. If you're doing an hour and a half gig and you're not particularly well practiced and you're playing harp the whole time and you're puckering the whole time, boy, oh boy, you're going to know about it when you come off the stage, yeah? You're going to feel completely numb in the whole of the bottom of your face, probably. So just like every other muscle, muscles in your cheeks can be trained. You can get better at this, yeah? But it can be a little bit uncomfortable and leave you feeling a bit sore if you're not used to it. So let's do the same exercise with tongue blocking. Lots of pros. The first one I've called easy use of chords. What I mean by that is if you're tongue blocking a note, you can very quickly and easily sound a chord underneath it by removing your tongue. That's a bit of an obvious kind of umpire-y type thing. But also in blues, you get it the other way round. You sometimes hear the chord and then you hear the note on its own. The second one is just a sweet sound. If you're playing a nice bit of campfire music and you just want it to sound really plaintive, that kind of thing. Yeah, I would always choose to do that, tongue blocking rather than puckering, because you just get that purity of sound. Third one, smoother movement. So that's recognising the fact that if you've got a tongue in contact with your harmonica, you've got much better lubrication going on. Yeah, you can move it around a little bit easier. The fourth one down is this thing about the accuracy of the pitch. So unlike playing puckering, we can be reasonably sure when we're playing blow 4 that we will get a pure C. The fifth one down, octave playing. Right now, a little variation on tongue blocking is that rather than just getting one hole out of the corner of your mouth, you can put your tongue in the middle and enable 2 holes. So, for example, you can play 1 and 4 simultaneously. Can you hear that? It's something that the blues guys are really fond of as well. The last one is the opposite of what we said with puckering. It is more comfortable, yeah. You can play for hours and hours and hours this way. So the cons then. The first one is the opposite of what we said was an advantage of puckering. We can't use our tongue for articulation, yeah, we have to use other means of starting a note. So likewise, we can't get that oi 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 effect that you can get with puckering. So the second point down, bends are more difficult. They are possible, it's really quite hard to do. If you're trying bends for the first place, certainly do it with puckering. Some people can do it with tongue blocking, but it's not easy. I've gone as far as to say the final con is that overblows and overdraws are nigh on impossible. So there we have the 2 famous techniques then, puckering and tongue blocking. Just to make some general points about these, first one is most chromatic players tend to use tongue blocking. There are exceptions to that, notably Toots Thielemans, yeah, who was a puckerer who played the chromatic. And that's how he got his gorgeous bends, because you can get bends on a chromatic, not just on a diatonic. Sort of rocky, bluesy, rocky players tend to be puckerers, but as I think I've been implying as I've been talking about this, there are plenty of exceptions to that. Yeah, a lot of people who are in a hurry to get going with bends, they just purely concentrate on puckering because they think that's the key to being a great blues player. And then later on, they realise that some of the greats do a huge amount of tongue blocking all over the place. Yeah, Little Walter, you'll see advanced players, mid-phrase, they jump between puckering and tongue blocking. So which technique should you use? Now, the advantages and disadvantages that we've just gone through for both of them are so significant that I would say do both. Yeah, don't give up on one. Don't decide that you're going to be in the puckering tribe or the tongue blocking tribe, which is what some harmonica players choose to do. Try to use both of them. But you might say, well, when should I use each? So what worked for me is that I tended to use tongue blocking when I was playing in first position in the middle and the top octave of the harmonica, typically playing folk songs. And that works quite well. You can do chordal accompaniments and so on. And I tended to play puckering when I was down in the bottom octave and a half and I was trying to get the bluesy stuff and trying to get my bends going. But I kept the tongue blocking fire alive, okay? And then what I started to do, as I got more mature, is I started to incorporate more tongue blocking into the second position kind of bluesy stuff. And by the way, it goes the other way as well. You'll find that there's occasional folk songs where you're missing a note down in the bottom octave typically, and you need to bend it. And bending you typically doing puckering, so you end up doing a bit of puckering. So what I'm advocating is a multicultural world here, folks, of both puckering and tongue blocking, actually in all styles. So where should you go next straight away with this? Well, I would say, why not go back to lesson 3 and lesson 4, where I gave you in tab some very simple tunes actually that you could play using the chord melody technique, but now play them single notes, yeah? And play them not only puckering, but play them tongue blocking as well. All right, try and do both, try and sort of get to know it. We will have much more to say about both of these techniques in future lessons. I hope that's been helpful, folks. Quite an important lesson, this one. Remember, getting single notes gets us up one level of the pyramid, so be determined, decide that you're going to try and work out how to get single notes and try and use both of these techniques, okay? And just have some patience. Try and use some discipline as well, though. Try to make sure you don't accidentally get 2 notes. So go away, practice your single notes, and I'll see you next time. Bye!